Interesting. All right. There's always a little bit of a delay here when you're doing a live stream with the latency issues. Um, as always, let me know as soon as everybody sees and hears me. So if the audio is fine and all that stuff, then I think we're good to go. The chat's up right there. So if somebody who's here could just let me know that they can see and hear me just fine, then that's great. If there is a technical problem, I need to know about it. Hold on, I'm going to make one adjustment. You're going to hear that. Travis, Josh. What's up, Josh? What's up, Travis? Good morning. Hear and see me. Okay. That's the tech check that we do at the beginning of the live stream. And then we start to go with whatever today is. Picture and sound are good. We'll see for how long, Travis. Audio and video fine. Sounds and looks good. Everything perfect. Okay. Welcome everybody to the live stream. This one's a little bit different because I'm kind of in a hopefully in a non-transitional period when it comes to live streaming, but we're going to kind of talk out some of the things. Ben Barden. Oh, there he is. You just be thankful, Ben, that you weren't around last week for Cameron Flask, because the fiasco that ensued is sort of the reason that we have today's topic. Matt, how are you? So let's kind of get into some stuff and talk about this. And I'm glad Josh is pretty hood. Here's the deal. I love Lightstream's platform. I think that the user experience for both the person who is live streaming and for guests is second to none from what I found so far. It is light years beyond what Google Hangouts was. And though I wish as a backup that they had not taken that option away, I really like what I can do with Lightstream in terms of how I can set up different projects. I can invite people in. The problem, there was no show, Ben. It was messy. The problem that I've been having with Lightstream since the beginning of using it is, and it was really the solution that I found because Google Hangouts was going away, is a reliability issue. Now, initially, I thought that all the reliability issues had to do with my connection that I have here, because I'm up on a hill, I'm in the country, 5G is coming, that should solve a lot of things, but it's not here now. So my Wi-Fi hotspot solution for here in the studio is reliable-ish, but it's not a rock solid Ethernet high-speed connection to the interwebs. So what we did is we made a change a while ago, and I set Caleb Pike up from DSLR Video Shooter, who's one of the other two co-hosts, along with Ben Barden, who's in the chat, for our every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Cameron Flask show. And he has ridiculously fast internet. So he has rock solid, hardwired, better than I'll probably ever get up here on the hill internet. And he started to log in as an admin to my YouTube channel and actually was hosting the live streams from his end. So he would show up and would still show up as the C47 as well, which can create a little bit of confusion. I don't know if we can handle that. But ultimately, what's happening every week is we're going into the Lightstream platform, basically setting up a project. And oftentimes situations are happening where just getting completely kicked out of the stream. So basically the way this works is, from my understanding, and I'm probably getting this wrong, and you can basically chime in if you want, but there's essentially two different solutions. One, which I absolutely love, is called MIMO Live by Boink Software. And it's like a studio in a box. You get the software and you can connect directly to YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're pushing your content, Twitch. And then you have literally a studio. And we were using that a long time ago. The problem with MIMO Live, and this may be our backup solution, is it really does rely upon a connection. But it's a lot more work in some respects to set it up initially. And the UI is really nice, but it's a deep application. And you are hosting that software directly on your system, and you're relying upon your connection and everybody else's connections because they're basically coming into you, and then you're distributing the live stream to the world. The way Lightstream works and other services like StreamYard, though I don't really love their UI and their basic experience, is you are connecting to a browser-based system. So your whole UI, basically your app, is in the cloud. You log in either using one of the services, your account with YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or whoever you're using, pardon me. And then what you do is you set up a project, and then within that project, you add assets. And what's up, Darren? Welcome. You put together all of those assets. So that can be still images, that can be video, that can be audio, whatever it is that you want to do. You can share your screen, and then you set up these different scenes, and you can switch between them as you push your live stream. And then the other way that you can connect is once you're in, you can do RTMP. So basically, you're putting in essentially a URL, you're putting in a stream key. And I prefer that because it allows me to go into YouTube. I can set up the whole episode with the title and the description and the links and everything else. And then I essentially just connect to that. So what you're doing is you are connecting to Lightstream or one of these other cloud-based services. They're handling the bandwidth, and that includes when you invite guests. So you get a little, invite URL, and then your guests will log in through a web browser. They're also connecting to Lightstream, and then that is your room, your sort of, place. And then that gets pushed live to and connects to YouTube or Twitch or wherever else you're going. And then you make the decision on that side in terms of when you're going to push that live to your audience. It's really a great experience, but it hasn't been reliable. There's been times, for instance, last week, two things happened. One, I went for an entire hour for the live stream, and at the end, it just kicked me out. So boom, I'm gone. I have to try to reconnect. You know that doesn't work very well with YouTube. And countless times when we're doing Camera and Flask, when there's three of us, one of us gets kicked out, our audio goes robotic or underwater. Sometimes right at the last minute, we have to set up a new project because that project just isn't connecting to YouTube. And so it's just ridiculous. And then last week, the worst of the worst happened. And I felt doubly bad for the situation because our friend Eric Naso from News Shooter, he was going to be the other co-host for the show because Ben was off doing God knows what Ben does. So we basically couldn't get all of us into the room. We forget about going live. That was impossible. And so what happened was Caleb was hosting, and then we thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with his server and everything that he has going on. So I tried to do it, and it was just impossible. So about 10 to 15 minutes into it, we had to call it. There was no way we could connect to everything. It definitely seemed like it was something on Lightstream's side. And it kept asking for an email to log in. It was just doing all kinds of strange things. And it was sort of end of the road in terms of Lightstream because we've had situations, anybody who comes to Camera and Flask, knows that if we go through an hour-long show without any technical difficulties, it's like unicorn shit. It's just crazy. I don't know. It's insane. If that actually happens, then it's pretty amazing. So what I've been doing for the last week is I've been going back and forth with Lightstream. You know, credit to them. The CEO has been emailing back and forth. And apparently, though I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to have that chat with a particular tech support person, at 10 a.m. today, so this is going to be a shorter episode, I am going to go through the whole system with somebody from Lightstream and try to determine where our problems are coming from. We also have issues where when somebody comes in and is invited in, they're supposed to be coming in at least 1280 by 720 because that's the broadcasted resolution for now until 1080 is supported. And what winds up happening is they come in at like 320 by 240 or 640 by 360, you know, blah, 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 blah. So there. What's up, Leo? So that's what's going to happen. So from about 10 to 11 today, I'm hopefully going to determine whether or not there's a user error and things that I can be doing that will make the experience more reliable. They've also, as a company, David said, did I hear the word unicorn? A7 III. Well, it would be A7S III rumors, by the way, if that was true. So Josh is asking, how much does the service cost? So the service that we were using, and of course, this is the startup model nowadays, was absolutely free. And because even in those first 2 or 3 times, there were reliability issues, and their next tier was a big jump. It was, I think, $89 a month. We held off on actually doing that, or I held off. Now, in the last week, ironically, 10, 15 minutes after the debacle with Eric Naso, Caleb, and I last week, I got an email saying, okay, it's time for us to now start to provide a paid tier that is $20 a month. So I'm all for that, 1,000,000%. I don't mind spending $250 or so every year to have a good live streaming solution, especially because I'm live streaming this sometimes. But of course, Camera and Flask is a consistent weekly show on the channel. The problem is I don't know if the reliability is there. So that's why the tech support's going to go in there. So there really wasn't an affordable, when I say affordable, I'm not talking enterprise or like bigger scale option. And the answer that I have not gotten yet from Lightstream is if I go to that $20 tier, am I getting some preference in terms of bandwidth? And it's impossible to know if even these problems are directly bandwidth related. But last week, it definitely seemed like when we were trying to do our show for Camera and Flask, there were server issues and there were definitely issues with Lightstream because we were consistently having the same problems trying to set up separate projects from 2 completely different locations, 1,500 miles or so apart from each other. So there you have it. So that's my update. My hope, the goal, is that Lightstream wins because I don't want to use some of the other solutions out there. The next option is either going to go the OBS route, but the UI is so nice with Lightstream, again, for experience, what you guys see, everything else, or possibly going back to MIMO Live. But if we go MIMO Live, then it is going to rely upon Caleb to be the one that sets that up. And I'm trying not to burden him. It's very easy for him to host using Lightstream, but to fire up and to have to handle all the stuff related to MIMO Live, it's a big ask when it's not your channel. And so, you know, he's definitely, you know, part of Camera and Flask, but this is the C47's channel. And so, you know, in an ideal world, everything's happening from here. And he's just coming in as a guest. As it is, Lightstream is so streamlined that that it's not really a burden to be the one that's hosting it because it is so simple to kind of handle the administrative side of it. So there you go. All right, so I'm done blabbing about that. It's about 15 minutes. I've got about 15 to 20 minutes that I can give to this live stream today. We are going to definitely be doing camera and flask. If Ben, you're still here, if you could just grab the link to it that I sent out to you guys yesterday for the show and post that into the chat would be awesome. And that will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we are redoing last week's episode. So ideally, we'd have Eric back on the show. We'll definitely get back Eric on the show in the future. And again, huge apologies. Eric and I had a nice long chat, basically over the interwebs, video based, when the episode didn't happen. So we drank a little bit and we had a little chat about stuff, and aired our frustrations about certain types of equipment that frustrate us on a regular basis. But this is going to be about camera movement. So we're going to be talking about gimbals. We're going to be talking about jibs. We're going to be talking about sliders. We're going to be talking about some of the app-based control that you have with those, and just sort of our different experiences with those different types of equipment. So that's definitely going to be, I think, an interesting topic. I think all three of us have different perspectives of where we see certain types of equipment fitting within that category. So we're not really going to focus on camera support in the traditional way, meaning tripod systems. I'm sure something will come up about that, but it's really going to be focused on those other tools that people are using for camera movement, and where we might see they actually fit for different types of productions and where we see they might not. So there you go. So the chat's up. We've got some people in here. What kind of questions do people have about equipment and about things that they might be trying to work out this week related to their productions? Camera, lighting, audio, grip, what you got? Let's start a little dialogue here now. And by the way, if you have a question or you want to make a comment specifically to me and get my attention, then just do what Josh has been doing, which is an @the_C47 all together, and then it'll pop up. Okay, good. Here we go. Josh says, I use a homemade bead board for fill light, but it's often cumbersome to transport. Any recommendations for a similar light quality in an easier to transport form factor? So Josh, is nothing quite like beadboard. I'm using it over there because it's compressed styrofoam and it's the way the light scatters. I don't know what size you're using. I tend to use 4x4s. And one of the tricks that I do is I take a 4x4. I score it down the styrofoam side, not the silver side on the other side. So about halfway. And then I basically bend it so it basically cracks in half. And then I line the inside and all of the outer edges with 2-inch white gaff tape. And that way, what you have is a 2x4 as opposed to a 4x4 piece of beadboard. Then you need to get a quacker or duckbill or platypus clamp, travel with one of those, a stand and a grip head, and Bob's your uncle. That's what I do because there really isn't anything quite like it. Though there are some frame-based solutions out there that will give you somewhat similar qualities of light that you can bounce off of. And, ultra bounce, though it tends to not supposed to have shine, but it's a little bit shiny. You can get a 4x4, of ultra bounce, modern studio equipment, the rag place, and you can put that around the DP kit that I designed from WESTCOTT that breaks down to 22-inch tubes. Shimera makes a 4x4 frame that you can collapse down to relatively small. And there's a couple other companies like that. And then, of course, the least expensive way to do it is like 5-in-1 reflectors. And again, that white is not going to have the same quality as beadboard, but there are some nice ones that you can find with handles. Make sure to look for ones with handles, especially if you're going the Amazon route. And you can basically use those. I oftentimes use beadboard to bounce off of for key, and then I'll use something else that's larger to give a return for the fill. Okay, good. So hopefully that helps. Do I run a lav and a boom when I'm one-man banding content or just one mic? So Nicholas, it depends on the production and what I'm doing. It also depends on the situation in terms of talent. So in an ideal world, if we've determined that it doesn't matter if we see the lavalier, I will absolutely lav and also boom. Tomorrow I have a shoot where I'm going to be doing that. I'm actually going to do it wirelessly. So I'm basically going to use the 2-channel receiver from Sony. I'm going to attach a lav. I'm probably going to hide it. Probably use like the Rode lav and hide that. Hoping to use my ECM88 from Sony. Problem is that the capsules are on the side, and I still don't have a good solution from anybody that allows me to hide that mic. So there's a company called Hide a Mic, and I'm trying to figure out how we can get something that will allow us to hide the ECM88 or ECM90. If I'm in situations, Nicholas, where I'm interviewing a lot of people over a short period of time, then I'll tend to just boom, because we don't really have time for them to come in and get mic'd up. So they'll have a spot that they hit and they basically talk to camera or off of camera, and we basically handle it that way. A good tip there would be to, especially for interior locations, would be to use a cardioid pickup pattern mic like an NT55, because it's a little bit wider. It also doesn't have a tail in the back to pick up audio, which is great when you have HVAC, heating, ventilation, AC units. So that might be something that you want to take a look at. That NT55 has been a lifesaver for me in certain types of situations. If I'm doing educational content, I'll tend to lav and boom, unless it's just short content for the YouTube channel. And then preferably I'm just booming because it's a little bit easier. Position of this right now is not quite where it should be. It should probably be pointed down a little bit more, because you generally have an initial pickup pattern that's coming out of the mic, which is called the you're basically on access if you're in that pickup. And then there's a broader pickup, which is called the lobe, L-O-B-E. And if you point the mic over here, you're within the lobe. When the person's moving, you're not seeing the audio levels dip up and down. If it's pointed directly at their mouth and they start to move, then you're more likely to hear those dips in terms of levels. Okay. Neil says, any tips for getting good eye light when doing a side key? Well, Neil, I'd say that one of the things is that you can cheat your side key just ever so slightly. You just have to be careful of that shadow off of the person's nose, and a lot of that has to do with the shape of their face. But if you have a really, really big side key, like a 4x4 minimum, but a 6x6, then you should be getting catch light in the person's eyes. And then you basically ice cream sandwich that, which is you've got a big key and a big fill, and you make sure that that's definitely on the side so you're not seeing a second catch, and it'll just sort of wrap that light in a really nice way. There are other options. You take something like the APUTURE MC, and I only have it here because I have some smaller lights that are set up to basically charge up today for that project tomorrow, because I'm doing a lot of tabletop. It's at a winery. And, you take a little light like this, and you can essentially take this and use this as an eye light. So you're going to bring that over to the camera side to just get a little bit of a glint. If you don't have a problem with it, the real trick here is it's got to be really, really low, right? So you can also take something, I can't wait till I build out this studio so I can do some more things with lenses. I've got a FIILEX P360 over there, which has this really small softbox. And if you dial that down to like 1%, it just has a glow. Then you get an even slightly larger catch light coming there. The disadvantage, of course, is not battery powered unless you P-tap it. So there you go. So let's see. We got about another 10 minutes, and then I have to get ready for this. What is this? Oh, Peter McKinnon video. Is that like a shout out for Very ND versus Pola Pro? Asking if I've seen it. I have not. There you go. Let's see. Darren's asking about 8K video out of the Canon R5. Oh man, I don't even want to go there. I don't know. I don't know where Canon's going with this camera. I'm excited to see that Canon is doing stuff that is hopefully pushing some things. The real question always is, what's the implementation? Resolution means nothing unless you have enough data rate to support that. And we're finding that with UHD 4K and DCI 4K, that sort of at the beginning of quality, it's generally going to be 10-bit 422 and at around 200 megabits per second. So that would mean that if you're jumping to 8K, then to retain the same quality you're getting at 200, you have to times that by 4, and you need to have 800 megabits per second. And that's just for that sort of starting point. A lot of people are shooting on cameras that are not shooting RAW at data rates that are 300 to 400 plus megabits per second. So you quadruple 400, and now you're getting into some pretty beefy data rates. Let's see how it all goes. Brian's been experimenting 120D with a Fresnel to get the backlight really hard. Love that. I'm definitely doing a lot of stuff now with some harder lights, which is great. And the AudioTechnica AT4053B is a fantastic dialogue mic, similar to the NT55. I love it. Great, Matt. Good to hear. If you've got black wrap around, you can use it to barn door those little lights to focus the light a little more on the eyes. Yes, you can. Rob, my big thing is I like a catch light to have a little, something there, not just this teeny tiny thing, but we take what we can get. And black wrap can definitely help and stop the spill. But the trick with a little eye light is really, it's got to be turned down so low that it's really not doing much to change what your overall lighting is. And generally, it would make sense for that to come from whatever side your key is coming from. All right, what do we got? A couple more minutes here. I'm sorry, it's going to be a short episode. Again, next week. I'm not even talking about next week. Well, next week, we'll see if we're going to be on a new live streaming platform or not. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping this tech support call goes well. In fact, let me just do this very quickly. I don't usually do this, but I want to see. Yeah, good. So it looks like I've heard from Mitchell from Livestream, and we're going to connect in a short while to kind of go over thing. When will YouTube support H.265? I have no clue. It's more efficient. It's the way I'm shooting on the XT3. I don't mind it. The one funny thing is that I'm finding, at least on the XT3, that when I'm shooting with that camera I'm shooting either 200 or 400 megabits per second. I am shooting H.265, but in the real world, if you think about a computer and what it's dealing with for video, all intra frames should be faster for the computer to handle in terms of maths, because each frame is an individual frame. It doesn't have to reconstruct the way it does with long GOP or long group of pictures, where you have 24 frames per second, and only 2 of those are full frames, and the rest are generally predictive and bidirectional frames. And so for some reason, on the XT3, I'm getting better performance in my timeline, at least with Final Cut Pro 10, if I'm shooting long GOP than I am all eye. I don't know. You got to test stuff and see what works. Kind of a little of the best of both worlds is the Sanken CSM1 4-inch and less than 2 ounces shotgun that does well inside. Love mine. Cool, Travis. Cardioid, or can you change the capsules? What's the deal with that? Is the brick real or just a backdrop? I plead the fifth. No, I'm just kidding. It's fake. I've got a bunch of different backdrops. I'm going to be rotating, playing around with some stuff. Got to keep things interesting. In fact, this will probably go away later today because I've got a shoot coming up where I don't want the brick background. I tried getting I have a bunch of like stormy gray backgrounds, but I just got just a solid 18% one, 18% gray one or middle gray one from Amazon, and it came through and it was dog poo. It was shiny. You know, it said wrinkles come out instantly. It didn't. It looks like it had been sitting on the shelf for probably 6 months or so. And so there was a crease, and the crease wasn't the problem, but it had faded where the crease was. And so that was a problem. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. What else we got for questions? Again, I'll go about another 5-10 minutes on this episode, so I'm happy to answer production questions if they come up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. It does help to grow the channel. If you know other production people that you think this content would be relevant to, then also ask them to subscribe. I'm the small to no crew, nuts and bolts guy, so it's not always going to be flashy here, but I'm going to help you get the job done. You'd like to see how I have them mounted? It's very easy, Brian. So the space that I'm in right now, the uninsulated barn space that I'm in right now, is built out of flats. So basically you have thin plywood, L brackets, and it's about a 16 by 16 space. And so behind that brick wall is just wood, and all I'm using are literally thumbtacks to hold it up, because these backdrops are so freaking lightweight. It's just ridiculous. Do I use fancy sound blankets or just moving blankets? Just moving blankets. But I have to say that Caleb Pike on DSLR Video Shooter has done some stuff, and there are these black on one side, white on other side sound blankets that are very, very, very reasonable to buy. They're nice and thick, and I'm definitely going to purchase some of those for 2 reasons. One, for sound, but I love the fact that you have basically negative fill on one side and you have bounce on the other. So that's what I got for you there. It's a fixed super cardioid. I guess you're talking, Travis, about this CSM1 with about 2-inch interference tube, accurate fall off when off axis. Nice. All right, Rob, what we got? Do you produce the voiceover in your projects too? Any tips? I only, when you say produce, I guess I'm going to try to clarify, Rob. Do you mean, am I doing the voiceover, or am I actually producing somebody else doing voiceover? The answer to that is yes to both. I'm only the voiceover if it's a video that I'm basically hosting, but I don't think that I have a great voiceover voice. I don't. So I tend to hire people to do voiceover. We had a project that came in end of last year. Well, the year before that went into last year, and had somebody locally who does a lot of production and post with me, and they wound up doing the voiceover work, but I directed that voiceover. So we basically set up, we have a nice little setup that's sound blankets or moving blankets, a RØDE system, and basically going in and recording those VOs very, very clean directly into a timeline. And that's what we did. Kurt, thoughts on the new C500 Mark II versus C200? Well, to answer that question, on paper, C500 Mark II is a much better camera. I should be getting one in this week, not to own, but to create some content around. And I will be able to answer that question in a more informed way in the near future. C700 sensor, full frame. So I'm interested to see how that image translates. So I'm less interested in the field of view component of it, even though that's important, especially when you're shooting in smaller spaces. I'm more interested in terms of, is there a difference, especially if you're shooting cinema raw light, between the 2 cameras in terms of how much you can push and pull the images. But, we'll see what the deal is. Yeah, there you go. What else we got? Can we use mask on faces while color grading in FCP? Yeah, you can mask for sure. I'm not really the expert on that. I got rid of my post-life teaching a long time ago. So I use Final Cut Pro 10 as my post solution for stuff. But for clients, we're using both Final Cut and Premiere, After Effects, and different solutions depending on the project. Shovik, Big question. C500 Mark II versus Sony FX9. Slightly different price points. When you build up both cameras, not as much of a difference in price points, especially the FX9 to get some of the other ports and stuff. The big thing you have to really think about right now for the FX9 is it is not giving you the option to record at the camera's native sensor size. So the C500 Mark II will allow you to record at 5.9K Cinema Raw Lite, but the FX9, while it is a similar or same size sensor, it will only allow you to record in up to, I believe, DCI 4K, so 4096 by 2160. Top tips for good green screen lighting. Don't do it, Clayton. I hate green screen. I think the biggest tip is, you've read the books, you know the basic formulas, but I think that the biggest tip I can give people is don't overlight. The software is so good at keying now that even no wrinkles, don't overlight, cross key. That's the big deal, is if you don't overlight that, that's the biggest problem that I've had on corporate projects, is that you'll have people who come in and they want that thing to just read green, like crazy green. And then what's happening is it's so bright, sometimes brighter by a stop or more from how you're lighting talent, that you're bound to have spill and issues there. I also flag a lot. So however you're framing up talent, what I'll do is I'll walk in out of frame, essentially negative fill or flags to basically block as much of that spill that's coming from the green screen as possible. If you're cowboying, or you're just below the hands from a standing position, or your frame is not full body, then the other trick is lay down black duvetine or something black on the ground to make sure you're not getting spill from, especially on a green screen cyc, that kind of stuff. And then it's just camera settings overall in terms of what you're doing. Obviously, you want to have as much information in there. So highest bit rate, 10-bit 422, ideally at least, which will help. And in a lot of studio-based situations, it may not actually benefit you, in my opinion, to shoot log. You might actually want to, make sure that you are dialing everything in right there. But that depends on the type of project. Obviously, if you're doing bigger commercial stuff, if you're matching up with more special effects things, then you probably do want to shoot log or raw. But you want to test it. Lots of tests is a good thing to do. What else we got here? Shovik is saying that we're going to get 16-bit raw, 6K raw coming to the FX9 from a Sony rep. I wouldn't be surprised. The question is, how fat is that file? How big is it? I think that both cameras look fantastic. I think that people are going to be creating a lot of great content. It's really healthy that we have a couple of cameras that are full frame that are in this price range, and from very reliable companies. There's also, of course, other companies like Zcam, and we'll see if Blackmagic does a full frame camera and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the question I have for you, Shovik, is there a way to shoot log on the FX9 and then apply the S-Cinetone, let's say we'll call it a LUT at that point, to your footage to make sure that your skin tones and stuff are falling in that place? A lot of experience with FS7, FS7 II, but none yet with the FX9. Here we are, 9:39 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. We are going to wrap this sucker up because I have to go and take care of business. It looks like, for the most part, we've had a successful stream. A very, very different experience than last week. And hopefully in about 20 minutes when I go through some of this stuff with Lightstream, I can sort this out. I'm all in for a paid plan with them if I feel like I can get this to work consistently for us. on a weekly basis, and we don't have these just nightmares of situations. Don't forget Cameron Flask today at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. Myself, Ben Barden, and Caleb Pike talking about camera movement equipment. So sliders, jibs, dollies, gimbals, that kind of stuff. And Shovik's going to go, or has already reverse engineered that sucker for his S-Cinetone matchup. And the Sony rep. I love that we always say like Canon rep, Sony rep. Sony rep said they'll have a Cinetone LUT. Good. Don't know if it's out yet. Great. And thank you very much for coming to the chat. We had, people, our normal. Tell people about the channel. I appreciate it. Let's figure this thing out. And hopefully some of you will be back for Cameron Flask again. Subscribe if you haven't. If you're watching content on this site on a semi-regular basis, please make sure you do. And Shovik will be interviewing a Sony rep in India. I don't know what that means, but I'm going with it. Thank you very much. I'm going to push a logo, and I'll see everybody later on today or next week. Take care.